Nissim was able to get here. And so I'd like to welcome Nissim Black now and to introduce him. Nissim will share his story with us in just a moment. He's a world famous Jewish musician who's inspired hundreds of thousands of Jews through his sharp beats and his hook-filled rhymes, as well as his incredible journey to becoming an Orthodox Jew. Nissim, thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to hear
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much for having me. Baruch Hashem, there's so many different pieces and so many different places to start actually with the story. I want to first say thank you to David and for putting this together, and Baruch Hashem allowing me to be able to come here and to be able to share over a piece or two. Um, so I think it's most appropriate to start with the Aliyah story since that's what we all hear about. It was maybe 5 years ago. I found myself with a great longing to move to Eretz Israel. Now, I would say many people have asked me over the years, what was the major thing that made you want to move to Israel? The major thing that made me want to move to Israel is from the beginning of me learning about Judaism. It was very, very clear to me. Now you have to understand, I was only learning Tanakh. There was no, there was no, there was no Torah Shabbal Pei. There was no oral Torah, no nothing, no Shulchan Aruch, no nothing. All I had was Tanakh. I sat at Tanakh on the table after many days and weeks of studying till my brain was almost fried, trying to find out what the truth was, what is the emet, what is the emes. I finally settled and I set the Tanakh down and I said, God, I want to start over from the beginning. And not only do I want to start over from the beginning, I'm going to start over our relationship. And I'm only doing this so that I may know you. I want to know what you love. I want to know what you hate. I want to know what you reward. I want to know what you punish. And after going through the text, very amazing, most beautiful thing, there's a few things that a person will discover. You know, you take two good friends and they spend a lot of time together, you'll begin to see that they become inseparable, and it's very, very hard to tell them apart. If you're on the phone, if you have a mutual friend that knows them exclusively, you'll start to see that they start to laugh the same, they start laughing at the same jokes, they develop the same interest. You know, some people who have a pet for a long time, they start to look like their dog. You know, it's like contagious to some degree. So when a person finds himself spending so much time with the Shem as I was fasting, going 3 days without food, crying. You know, I was doing this several times. I did this, crying out to Hashem, trying to find the truth. And one thing that I discovered, or two things that I discovered, was that Hashem had an overwhelming, a major love for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish people, and had an overwhelming love for Eretz Yisrael, the actual land, Kedushas Haaretz, the holy land. So it's very, very interesting to answer that question every time I'm asked, what made you want to move to Israel? I think anybody who spent a considerable amount of time learning Tanakh, learning Navi, seeing where everything happened, is a no-brainer that you're going to want to be in the place where everything actually happened at, right? You take any person like who wants to be a singer, artist, an entertainer of any sort. What does he do? He moves to LA. He picks up everything and he goes to LA in order for him to pursue whatever dream he is. If a person like me who was, just learning out and trying to become a Jew, trying to be a Yid, where do you go to immerse yourself? You go to Eretz Yisrael. So it was never a time, at least in my journey, that I didn't think that I wanted to be there. I never had a feeling not to be there. So how did I get there? I was going out praying every day. I am a breast lover. I spent a considerable amount of time in the forest praying to Hashem, Seward Park. Shout out to everybody from Seattle who knows what Seward Park. I bet it's still got my footsteps all over that forest. Spent a lot of time there. Between there, Lake Washington, other places, and I would go out and I would cry to Hashem and about many other things. But I would spend a little bit of time on Eretz Yisrael because I knew it was time to go. My brother-in-law was ready to go. My sister-in-law was ready to go. My wife was not ready to go. So we had a dilemma. Nobody wanted to move without the other. And my wife would tell me continuously, I never been there. I don't know the language. I don't know anybody. I'm not moving. First, we have to go. We have to take a pilot trip. Baruch Hashem, I was zocher that a good friend of mine, Leah Russak, was able to take us for our first trip to Eretz Yisrael. This is around year 2013. Went there just to go visit. And that only made it worse, my yearning and all my kisufim to be in Eretz Yisrael. It only made it worse. So I came back. I'm praying even more intense. I know where I want to be. So my wife, same thing, not moving, never been there, don't know the language or whatever. And it got so bad I couldn't even mention Israel in the house. I couldn't say is. I had to find a different word for is. Couldn't even get it out. Right. That's a very interesting thing. So I had the habit as a breast lover of going every year to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, although it be controversial. I was going there even from Seattle. And so I decided to daven early, a daven Nate's one Rosh Hashanah. And after that, I went out to go and pray. I think I had an early lunch. The Sephardi Chevra had an early lunch, and obviously the Ashkenazim were davening until nighttime anyway. So I davened early, and we after lunch I went out to go talk to Hashem, and I was praying there for 4 hours straight. I was crying on the side of a riverbank right at the end of Pushkin Street, and I was crying to Hashem about Eretz Yisrael. I don't think I've davened about anything else except for wanting to move to Eretz Yisrael. That Motzi Yom Tov, I got on the phone with my wife, and she told me, "You're never gonna believe what happened to me." I didn't tell her anything what I prayed for, or any of that. By the way, I couldn't say "is" in the house, right? So I said, she told me, I had a dream that I was in the old city in Eretz Yisrael, and I heard a voice telling me everything's okay, everything's going to be okay. And a song came on by a singer named Levi Robin inside of a dream. All this happened inside of a dream. And the song said inside of it, it says, "Don't be afraid of the lion's den." Anybody that ever looks up this song by Levi Robin, who happens to be a phenomenal artist, by the way, anyway, I love his music. This song is about being in Eretz Yisrael. And so this song is actually playing inside the dream. So I'm thinking Hashem just performed the nace. It's an outright miracle. And she had no idea what I was praying about. I'm praying 4 hours straight, not no bathroom, or maybe a bathroom break. I don't know. I was going 4 hours straight, no talking with anybody, very serious business. It was in my heart that I had to be there. What made it worse about this about my yearning, what made it even stronger was that, predominantly everybody that goes to Uman comes from Eretz Yisrael. So you're around so many other Yidden, and you could just feel the geschmack of being in Eretz Yisrael, just being there, even in Uman, right? So it was like it only made issues worse. So after my wife tells me in a dream, I'm like, I can't believe it. So I said to her, I said, maybe, Hashem's trying to tell us, maybe it's time to go and move to Eretz Yisrael. She says to me, "Nope, I never been there. I don't know the language. I don't know anybody." So, so much for whatever I thought I had planned at this time. So it happened maybe about a month and a half later, and for the Shabbos Project weekend, I happened to be in London and Manchester for Shabbos UK. I was actually for the Shabbos I was inside of Manchester, and at a congregation, I think it was called Whitefield. Beautiful Shabbos I had there. So many people there that never spent Shabbos before in their whole entire life. They never kept Shabbos. It was a very eye-opening and defining moment for me, defining moment in spirituality, in terms of being able to believe in myself, in terms of giving chizuk and be able to strengthen other Yidden. This was probably the most defining trip I've had in my career, to be honest. So being there was awesome, but one of the things that kept coming up because of the hashpa that I was having on a lot of the young chevra there was, maybe you should stay here in Manchester, and we could hire you on as like a rabbi. And like, I don't have smicha, I can't come here and be a youth rabbi. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I was telling everybody who asked me this, because I was asked by several different people there. I told them, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't, because in a few months I'm moving to Eretz Yisrael, making Aliyah." And everybody would tell me, "Oh, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov." Now, if they would have called my wife at the time, she'd have been like, "I don't know what he's talking about. We never discussed any of this. None of this we ever talked about. He's crazy. He's making the whole thing up." But nobody there knew that. I was saying it. Why was I saying it? Because I was so confident that I was about to move to Eretz Yisrael, and there was no doubt, no safek at all in my mind that I'm moving to Eretz Yisrael. Me, my family, we're doing it, and I said it. I almost like called it into existence. That whole week that I was there for a week period. I was there over Shabbos. I barely slept. Every night I was out crying to Hashem on moving to Eretz Yisrael. It's such a yearning to be in Eretz Yisrael. I came back from that trip, and I want to say maybe a week later, I was sitting in the living room, me and my wife, and she's sitting on the floor, and she looks up to me and she says, "You know what? I think I want to move to Eretz Yisrael." And I'm looking at her like, she's saying it like it was her idea, right? And from there, we had decided that we wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael. And I think the funniest part about it was a little bit of a twist. Now, for that whole entire year leading up into that point, I had already been in touch with Nefesh Ben Nefesh, and hopefully this can't get me in trouble now, at least legally. But what I did was I had forged my wife's signature on all of the paperwork, but I could never have a meeting with them because she wasn't on board yet. So I was making sure all the documentation was ready, because now don't try this at home unless you know your wife. I know my wife. At least she wouldn't have been upset. But at least, so by the time she said she's ready to go, she was a little shocked and surprised to see that all we had to do was have a few meetings. And I want to say was maybe from this time that we had decided that, less than 5 months before we were on a plane on an Aliyah flight to Eretz Israel. So Baruch Hashem, it was an amazing, amazing experience that we had, and we were able to move here. Baruch Hashem, our mishpacha. I think we had 4 children at the time. Since we've been here, we've had 2 more. My brother and sister-in-law also moved. We moved to Yerushalayim. We were in Rehavia for about a year, and after that, I moved to Meir Sharim area, and now I'm here in Beit Shemesh, Baruch Hashem, settling myself. But the importance and um, the great, I wouldn't say it's halacha. There's a whole argument whether or not it's halacha or it's for a person to be in Eretz Yisrael. But I will say this, that it's a very, very clear thing, right? That there is a Jewish homeland. There is a place where Hashem's um, presence is concentrated, where Hashem's eyes are. And this is the place of Avot. They were here in this place, mamish in this place. And when you're here, everybody knows that there's something there. Some people are a little turned off spiritually, so it's harder for them to feel. But that's not the road. The road where people know when they come here that there's mamish something magical about being here in this place. Because I think the roots of all the neshamas of all of Klal Yisrael is here in this place. So ultimately, a person, and it's talked about this in many different Sifrei Kodesh, about how a person will never be able to really actualize their true potential until they're actually here in this place. So that's my Eretz Yisrael story.